Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time covering my semifinals match in the BBL Speed Tour. It's an Uber's format, rapid builds for teams, 15 to 20 minutes to build a team. So, uh, as mentioned previously, this leaves a lot of room for errors in prep or just the inability to fully account for all speed tiers and make good, accurate builds. And so that creates a little bit of fun chaos to work with. So we're going to take a look at my match against Edduzit. But before we dive into it, we're going to take a brief look at the mons that he had available to him, and then the pieces I brought to best address that. Just as a brief recap, I have Lugia, Ash Greninja, Mega Venusaur, Rotom Heat, Zygarde, Florges, Cobalion, Tyranitar, and Pyukumuku to play with. Heavily defensive leaning, almost stall, but there are some solid offensive pieces in here. And then what my opponent had available to him this week was Marshadow. Very scary. I watched in the previous match that he was very reliant on using Poltergeist, and I'm going to account for that in my prep. Celesteela, not too worried about its sweeper sets just because Pyukumuku can kind of wall those out, but its ability just to be a wall install mon is always very frustrating to deal with. Zapdos, again, not too worried about it just because Florges can generally wall it out, barring confusions via Hurricane or paralysis via Discharge or Thunderbolt. Primarina, not too worried about it. It struggles to push through Pyukumuku, although a subset is always scary. Nidoqueen, just a really strong hitter. You know, the mix set is always dangerous to deal with. Lugia is capable of handling that, so I'm not super worried, but it's something to be wary of. Lycanroc Dusk, entirely walled out by Pyukumuku, so not a large concern. Same with Pilosine, same with Skuntank. Just their ability to maybe slap some Toxic around is all that really worries me. And so going into that build, you will see a couple of things to account for the Poltergeist Marshadow, namely Lugia. Just by taking off that item, then Lugia is not at all vulnerable to Poltergeist. Obviously, Spectral Thief is something to be wary of, but just being able to wall it as hard as hitting attack is always very nice, especially because he was very reliant on it in the previous match. And so I'm running Roost, Psychic, Toxic, Thunderbolt. Psychic, Thunderbolt hit pretty much everything for solid damage. Toxic for what I still can't hit very well, but want to make sure I status. And then Roost just to keep healthy and try to get multi-scale active when necessary. I believe speed investment is to outspeed. Yep, just to outspeed Nidoqueen. I don't think that's fully accurate, but I do believe it's accurate enough to get past it. Maybe a couple extra points, just because, again, in a limited time, you can't fully review all of the calcs, so you have to make a couple of best guesses based off memory. Greninja, choice specs, 365 gets him past Marshadow with the speed investment. And then Skull, Dark Pulse, Gunk Shot, Ice Beam. Gunk Shot really specifically is only there for the Primarina, just because otherwise it comes in pretty freely. So being able to spam Gunk Shot at it can just tear it apart. Mega Venusaur, again, leaning into his wall install role. Yeah, he really shuts down anything Primarina wants to do. Sludge Bomb, Giga Drain, both hit for super effective damage. Earth Power, solid coverage for, I believe it was like, not Lycanroc, Nidoqueen to hit for, oh, Skuntank. For Skuntank, in case it showed up to hit for really strong, super effective damage. And then just Leech Seed Stall for predictive switches because it can Leech Seed Stall in front of the Celesteela, and Celesteela can't Leech Seed or Toxic Stall it back. So just being able to shut down the Celesteela and force it out is very nice if that's the set that shows up. Pyukumuku, very specific role in this match is to soak and toxic the Celesteela because that's just a little bit difficult to KO. So if I can get it on a timer, that's always very great. If it doesn't carry toxic, then I can easily KO it out without having to worry about that because I can outpace the Leech Seed stall that it might throw at Pyukumuku, and I'm not scared of its offensive sets. Florges, again, this time properly natured so that it's on the defensive nature, built to just be a really strong physical wall. Really does a nice job of walling out Marshadow just because it, again, denies the Poltergeist and then it resists the close combats, so it can just shut that down. Wish Protect, Moonblast against general coverage, and then Toxic leaves it very vulnerable to Nidoqueen, but it didn't really have a lot of great answers there to begin with. And then finally, just looking at his team, there was no strong answer to me clicking a ground attack, especially if it's Thousand Arrows, because both of his immunities, Zapdos and Celesteela, aren't enjoying that. A lot of his things take super effective damage after one. Celesteela, once it's grounded, takes super effective from it. Zapdos, the same deal. Nidoqueen, Lycanroc, Skuntank. So he just doesn't have a switch in 2,000 arrows. So my goal was to just slap a band on it, hit as hard as possible. Speed invested to get past Nidoqueen, just because that's his most relevant thing that underspeeds Zygarde that could one hit KO it back. And so I want to make sure I outspeed that. Really, the rest of the moves are kind of unnecessary, but you have to fill the slots. 1,000 arrows for the maximum damage. Extreme speed for late game in case there's things I need to kill. Outrage in case that's the best option to click, just on what's left on the field. And then Stone Edge, just in case I need to be able to one hit KO Zapdos reliably, and I'm not confident I can do it with 1,000 arrows. And so that's the team I brought. Those were kind of the goals. I was kind of leaning away from some of the stall mechanics in this match, leaning more towards some of my offensive pieces, specifically Zygarde and Greninja, but still really good, reliable bulk to work with. So we're going to dive into this match. I opt for a little bit fast. I opt for the Zygarde lead because I see that he doesn't have a strong answer to me leading Zygarde, especially if he leads something like Celesteela. The only lead that he really has that I would be scared of and immediately forced out with is Primarina, but everything else I'm happy to lead Zygarde. I'm wary of the fact that Nidoqueen could also be running a Scarf here to outspeed, but I'm going to take a chance on it and just go for the immediate attack with 1,000 arrows. I'm successful. Nidoqueen's immediately out of play. Really great turn one. Primarina comes in. Venusaur is such a super safe switch in on Primarina. I can Mega Evolve and Leech Seed very safely here. Ice Beam that it's about to do is only neutral now that I am Thick Fat, so I force it right back out. I go for a Giga Drain here, just not quite sure what it's going to do. I should just click Leech Seed again to keep forcing things into uncomfortable positions. Zapdos forces in Florges because Florges can wall that out. I'm going to go for a Wish support here just to get myself back and healthy. Again, not too worried about what the Primarina is going to do. The Toxic Mist stinks because that was a good way to get Primarina on a quick timer and not have to worry about it too much. So unfortunate there. I wish again. Basically, at this point, I'm trying to get Pyukumuku in here safely, but he goes right back out with Celesteela, so I don't get that opportunity. Forces me back into Florges again, who is happy to click Moonblast here. Celesteela comes back. And then this is going to put me back in with the Pyukumuku again. It's going to Leech Seed me, which confirms that it's defensive set, which I'm fine to see. I'm just hoping it's not toxic. Unfortunately, it is, but I do block it. And that's really, really relevant here because now I just need to get it toxic, and that's all Pyukumuku was really meant to do in this match. I'm confident I can deal with the rest of his pieces. I just want to make sure I have this poisoned and on a timer. So I get a soak here to get that accomplished. And then I'm going to take a 50-50 guess on this turn that he doesn't go for protect and he instead goes for an attack. Because if he goes for a protect here and I decide to stay in and click soak, then or not soak, toxic, then Pyukumuku dies without having poisoned Celesteela, which would be really unfortunate. But I do successfully call that he's going to go for a heavy slam here as opposed to trying to protect. And then I'm able to get it poisoned. And now Celesteela is no longer a concern. Now that it's a water typing, I can immediately scare it out with Venusaur. I know that, so I'm just going to go for a Leech Seed to, again, create pressure, force things health down just to keep momentum on my side. Lycanroc comes in. Zygarde's more than happy to come in on that on a. Let me go back for a turn. Next turn. So he is forced to flee with Zapdos here. Lycanroc's not a great switch in, but he doesn't really have a lot of safe switch ins because he can't just stand there with Zapdos because he's taking a chance that Hurricane hits and Hurricane only has a 70% accuracy. And so it just takes one miss for Zapdos to basically get hit by a Sludge Bomb. If that poisons plus the Leech Seed stall, Zapdos probably dies. And so it's just not a really comfortable spot for him to be in. He could come in with Marshadow, but Marshadow doesn't really have the offensive capability to one-hit KO Venusaur most likely, unless it's banded. And then I can play around that as I've been. And so he kind of gets forced in with Lycanroc. Not a great one. I don't expect that to come in, so I'm just going to go in with Zygarde because Zygarde handles a lot of his options the best. Because I'm expecting a Volt Switch, and it doesn't Volt Switch, unfortunately. But it comes in with Lycanroc, and now it's just another free window for me to click 1,000 arrows. He has no way to handle that. Primarina, I've already confirmed, isn't Scarfed because it did 2 attacks on entry at one point. And so I know that's forced out immediately. Marshadow comes in. Again, can't do anything with Poltergeist because he ran it 2 games in a row, so he got punished for that tech. He comes back in with Celesteela. I expect it's going to Toxic me, but I just want to do damage and break the Celesteela. If I can break pieces, then I'm just in a really, really good spot. He Toxics. I'm expecting he's going to go for a Protect this time, and I'm just going to hard switch this out into Greninja. He does, in fact, go for the Protect. Greninja is now standing in. Unfortunately, not able to activate the Battle Bond, but I'm going to stand in on the Zapdos. I don't expect it to be Scarfed, so I was caught off guard by the fact it was Scarfed. I just expected it to be more of a support and pivot Zapdos or some kind of heavy duty boot set. So I got really surprised by the Scarf. Really, really fortunate he goes for a Hurricane and misses. I would have immediately died to Volt Switch, and the continued trend of Greninja going down early would have continued. Fortunately, that doesn't happen. Greninja gets an Ice Beam here. Zapdos goes down. Battle Bond gets activated. Really, really strong spot for me. The game is essentially over at this point. I'm just playing to my win conditions. Floor just isn't scared of what Marshadow is going to do. I should just be clicking Moonblast here. I don't do that. Somewhat unfortunate on my part. I should just be more aggressive with my play. And then I go for a Toxic here. Again, really needless defensive play at this point in the game. I should just be playing to my win conditions a little more clearly. I come in with Zygarde, expecting him to go for Stone Edge again. He switches out into Marshadow. The Ice Punch, really good coverage, but I have just enough to bulk to survive that. Put Marshadow to the point it's basically dead. And then I get to click Scald for free because I don't think that's also Scarfed. I'm outspeeding the Marshadow. And then the Lycanroc doesn't really have anything left. He just clicks Excel Rock, and that's that. So yeah, that is my semifinal match against Edduzit. I do advance to the finals. Heavily on the play this match of the Zygarde just being really strong and offensive. A couple good pivots in with the Florges and the Venusaur, and then no activity at all for the second straight game with Lugia. Lugia was literally really, really clutching in game one, and then it really hasn't seen the field since game one. So just really strong play from some of my other supportive pieces, and then a good, strong offensive performance from Zygarde. So that is the match. I will be back with the finals.